Hello, this is Mark Holmes, the editorial director of Via Satellite, and we're back for yet another Thursday morning conversation. We've done plenty of them now, and I'm delighted to be chatting again to one of our youngest ever keynotes at an Access Intelligence satellite event, Kyla Guru from Bits and Bytes Cybersecurity Education. Kyla was a lunchtime keynote at Cybersat last year, and it was fascinating to get sort of a young person's perspective on cybersecurity and how they see the potential, changes in terms of cyber threats going forward. We'll get onto that in a little minute, but firstly, Kyla, how have you been during the pandemic? How's it sort of impacted your life?
Yeah, thank you for that introduction, Mr. Holmes. And again, it was such an honor to be at the conference and to speak to everyone. So still remembering those days when we could travel and meet up together and everything. But yeah, I've been doing well. I can't complain. We've been at home pretty much since March, and I've had pretty much my big milestones all go online, like graduation and the start of college, which is next Monday. So gearing up for that as well. And yeah, we're just bits and bytes wise, we're shifting everything to go online, like remote events and remote trainings. So everything is going well. It's just a bit of a shift.
It definitely is. And please call me Mark, by the way. I'm a bit too formal, but before we'll talk about some of the cybersecurity initiatives in a little bit, but we've been using these conversations to sort of find out what people have been doing in their spare time, movies, dramas they've been watching, music they've been listening to. So what you've had some obviously more time at home. So what have you been watching? Any recommendations? What have you been listening to?
Yeah, interesting. I've been watching and listening to a lot. I listen to a lot of music just like throughout my day. If I have a minute or if I am working on something, I'll always have like my Spotify playlist going and playing. So music it's my genres are like all over the place. I have playlists in everything, including like pop and country and dance type music, and then calmer music just based on my mood. So I think in that sense, I feel like my Spotify playlist is the best way to go on that. So just listening to my Spotify, and then Netflix wise, I've been watching, let's see, I'm not like a huge movie watcher, but my family has been watching a couple movies. We watched like Wreck-It, is it Wreck-It? Yeah, Wreck-It Ralph
Yeah.
2 a while ago, and that was really interesting. It was like it kind of had that like techie feel to it too, because they made so many references, like eBoy for eBay and viruses and things like that. So it was very fun. And yeah, so I think I've been watching a little bit with my family and just spending time together, but otherwise just kind of on Zoom calls and trying to find some sanity through exercise. And I also, this is a funny thing, I ordered a pool like midway into summer because I was like, I can't go to the pool here in my community. I can't go to any beaches, I guess, that are filled with people. So I'm just gonna order a kiddie pool, and I put it in my backyard. I just dropped it there and I filled it with water some days, and it was a nice little break from everything. So it was quite funny though, like people passing by and my neighbors and stuff were definitely asking what that was. But I had a fun time being a kid again.
You mentioned country music there, so I'm going to sort of,
Yeah.
what sort of country music do you like, or any favorite artists?
Yeah, I mean, so country music for me, I feel like is probably more country pop. But I guess let me think about some artists. I was listening to Brett Young yesterday.
Okay.
Um, I think he's more country pop in reality. But yeah, in more like neo country styles. But I do like sometimes I like the classics as well. I have a classics playlist, so I don't disregard those classic songs. my brother and I always like make fun of, like, we always used to listen to like classic country on the radio when we were really young, because my dad liked like one of the albums of a country singer. I think it was like Alan Lee Jackson, but we used to listen to like Chattahoochee all the time in the car. So now when it comes on, like we just blast it and we sing it out loud. We know all the lyrics to it. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. I just think country music has that like happy tune to it, or that story vibe throughout the music. So I really like it.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's why we love these Thursday morning conversations. We find out all what people are watching and listening to. Let's talk a little bit about cybersecurity. I mean, it was wonderful having you at Cybersat last year and talking to satellite cybersecurity government crowd, really giving a young person's opinion of how you see the future. I'm just sort of curious, sort of, just before we start, about what you're doing now. What did you sort of take away from being at Cybersat last year? What did you sort of learn from that experience?
Yeah, well, I think the biggest thing that I learned was I wasn't too familiar just working in Bits and Bytes cybersecurity. I think there are some overlaps with just like the advocacy and education with security, but I didn't really know about how big like the cybersecurity and satellite industry is. I feel like that's like a community in and of itself. So it was just very fascinating to connect with people and learn about different facets of it. Just when I was there, I think I got to listen to like the CTO or CIO of NASA, which was like super incredible, and she was there. And so yeah, I think I just learned more about the community, learned more about like what defenses are needed as we walk into this next era of like satellites in space, but also like 5G in the next world, and us moving, especially now with everything moving remote. So yeah, I think that in that way, I learned just a little more insight into what the whole industry is.
No, I mean, it was really great. And when one of the conversations we always have at Cybersat is sort of the emerging sort of threat landscape, threat sort of
Yeah.
as a young person who's immersed in this whole cybersecurity world, how do you see sort of the future of this stuff, where the threats might be, and how how do you see that whole landscape changing, I suppose?
Yeah, that's interesting. I think well, one thing I talked about in my speech, and I guess like just to go back to that, I feel like with young people, everything is like a lot and most things are connected through satellite technology. And I don't think like many young people realize that. But I think it'd be interesting to spark a conversation with young people about like the fact that like what would happen if a satellite got hacked, or what would happen if like your information was leaked from that, and just kind of talk about that process, because I honestly don't think I mean, until I went to Cybersat, I never really connected the dots there. So even just helping with that like initial conversation, I think would be really incredible. And then we can get into things like, yes, there's like new technologies that are emerging, as you said, the new threat landscape. Let's cover that a bit. Like, I think just some conversation, and I always say this in my speeches, but like talking to young people about this is like the first step. I know that sounds basic, but like I don't think we do that enough. Of like we talk about astronomy in school, I guess, a little bit, the planets, and then we talk about STEM, of course, but it's never integrated with cybersecurity. So I just think that first step needs to be taken, and whatever that looks like, that might be like standards for education. I know like states have standards at the moment, but creating some sort of like federal standards for teaching this kind of education, and then ensuring that it's in classrooms, accessible for every type of classroom, especially now. I think that's the first step.
I mean, yeah, because I mean, I suppose in some ways the space industry is more attractive than ever right now. We've seen obviously SpaceX, and there's a lot of interest in going to space. Do you think the industry though is not maybe doing the best job in terms of reaching out, communicating with people like yourself or people in your age group or even people younger than you to try and get them involved?
Well, I think it's hard, and yeah, so I wouldn't put it past companies that like it's a difficult task to definitely reach out to younger people. Now, especially at the moment now with dealing with all the other challenges of the time period, but also just because um, I feel like Hollywood already portrays this picture of like any job in space to be like an astronaut, and like that's the only job in space that there is. And I think like that is also there for like them, for these companies and these people to deal with. So I think just giving a better picture of what the industry is really like, the jobs that are out there, and maybe creating some opportunities for students to shadow different people in different roles in the company, or at least understand and get a picture of the cybersecurity part of the company, which is also a completely different world when you walk into it. There are, a million different roles within cybersecurity itself. So kind of showing them that that is possible, I think that's something that we haven't yet reached, and I would like to see soon. So I think
And so,
companies are working on that too. It's something that they're creating more and more opportunities as we go. It's like definitely a fine line between like what education do they need? Is it like what kind of passion should they come in with, and things like that.
and tell us a little bit about what you're up to now. I mean, obviously you know, uh, you're sort of developing your career. You've got one or two initiatives that you're directly involved in. What is sort of 2021? I mean, obviously we're still going to be in this COVID era for a little bit yet.
Yeah.
What does the next year look like for you, Kyla?
Yeah. So I'm very excited about like what's next for me. I think it's interesting kind of going through, as I said, those milestones in this time, just like graduating high school and moving into my dorm, which is just my regular bedroom, and because Stanford went remote for us. So yeah, so I guess 2021, I will be a freshman at Stanford. So I'm focusing on that and very excited about some of the classes they have in cybersecurity that I'm taking. And then also I am continuing to work on Bits and Bytes, and we have some very exciting partnerships and projects coming up with different organizations. We are partnering with like Girl Security to create cool disinformation curriculum. And it's just been really interesting. This summer, I've been a disinformation research intern for Girl Security as well, just helping create, they create an election security guide. So helping create that has been really interesting and fun, just researching the different disinformation campaigns that have happened in the past, particularly around the election time. So that has been incredibly interesting. I think just applying that to this new curriculum and watching it come to life is going to be really cool. And then I'm also working with ISACA on creating a video series type project with a couple other young people. So we're also really excited to see where that goes. That should be launching in the next month or so. So we should be able to get that out to teachers and classrooms soon. So working on different partnerships, growing Bits and Bytes, and we're also kind of seeing if we can grow into a for-profit company as well. We've been nonprofit all this time.
Yeah.
So seeing if we can do a bit of both, I think is going to be an interesting journey, especially as I traverse the Silicon Valley.
And as someone, I mean, we've had some conversations, obviously, because we do cybersat. We've been talking about particularly like the threat landscape to space assets at the moment, remote workforces, and people being dispersed, and a very different work environment to obviously what we saw 6 months ago. Do you see the threat greater now than ever because of this? Or do you see, and not just necessarily to satellite and space companies, but companies generally, that as we navigate this era, it's posing a host of challenges that perhaps we didn't expect before?
Yes, 100%. I mean, I think every time we are struck by something that is unexpected, it's definitely something that cyber criminals exploit just because there's so much uncertainty around new things. And so whether that be this pandemic or the upcoming election, there are so many areas where divisiveness is possible. So I think that's really where cyber criminals come in to exploit not only the risk of everybody, the decentralized workforce, everybody being on potentially insecure networks at home and sharing potentially confidential or secure information, but also the fact that there is a lot of uncertainty and confusion around the pandemic. So we've seen a rise, I think it's 300% increase in social engineering type attacks. So these domains are getting spoofed, and like, so they're creating like emails or domains that are like COVID-19 at pandemic.com or domains like that, that when you receive information like statistics, it might seem like they are coming from a source, but in reality, they're just, I think one of the campaigns that I studied was just like giving, it created a COVID-19 map and it said it came from Johns Hopkins. And when you click the map, the data was completely accurate on the map and the map seemed totally innocent. But then in the background, it was running an executable that delivered malicious code to your desktop or your laptop. So it was it's campaigns like that that are exploiting like our need for information right now, which is very sad that like we can't live in a world where that's not there anymore. But of course, like it's also in part up to us to make sure our connections are secure and to make sure that we aren't clicking any of those malicious links, and of course traversing also through the world of disinformation in the news as well.
And what does that, I mean, it's your freshman year, so you've still got a few years to go before you graduate. But what do you see as ultimately the future for you? Is it running your own company, or where would you like to, what sort of your sort of personal roadmap over the next few years?
Yeah, I mean, that's the big question that I'm trying to answer at the moment. But I think definitely throughout everything that I do, I hope that Bits and Bytes will always run simultaneously to what I'm doing and complement what I'm doing. So for instance, right now, I'm planning on taking some courses in cybersecurity in school and then also working on these partnerships side by side to school. So I'm hoping that that kind of partnership and like those co-lanes will always continue. But at the same time, I think I've always wanted to study more, research more, learn more about cybersecurity. So I hope to get more into the threat intelligence and threat research space as I go through college. And right now I'm doing like disinformation threat research for the work that I'm doing right now. So I think just naturally seeing what has fit with in Bits and Bytes so far, I've been doing threat research almost on like a higher level because I see these things and then we go out and educate about them and we advocate for more security. So I think in that sense, threat research and threat intel has always been a part of what I'm doing. It's just now I'm kind of, I would say pivoting, but like looking more to see how a career maybe in that would look like. And then, yeah, I think there are bigger dreams ahead and things like that. And of course, it's up to changing. As we've seen these past few months, everything is up for change. But that is kind of the goal right now, I think, for me.
And we always like to end on a fun question. I always try and usually now end on a music question. I know you spoke about one or two country songs, but tell me, one of your favorite pop songs over the last, I don't know, 6 months or year, a song that whenever you hear, you just think, oh, that's puts a smile on your face and think, oh, that's just a great song. Give me a good pop song to listen to on a Friday afternoon.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let me think because there's so many good ones. So my taste in music is also, I like mainstream music, but I also like not mainstream like pop. I'm just opening up my Spotify because that's my my repository for all my joy songs. I really like anything Ben Rector, and he's like just a fun artist, so I would definitely check him out. And then I've also been listening to a lot of, gosh, I'm trying to find a pattern here. It's everywhere. So I've been listening to like Harry Styles' new album is great. Yeah, that's a really good one. And then,
sorry, which Harry Styles song was that? We just cut out a little bit there. Was that Watermelon song?
oh, I was just saying his whole album is really awesome. I've been listening to it so much now that I haven't listened to it recently because I just needed a break. But I also would recommend like Daisies by Katy Perry. That's her new song. Really great pop music. There's so many. Oh my gosh. Yeah, anything like Griffin. I've been listening to Surfaces more recently. Are your daughters on TikTok? I feel like a lot of TikTok music is like.
My oldest one is. I mean, she's the one that keeps me up to date a little bit on music and stuff. So she actually introduced me to Billie Eilish, who
Billie Eilish
is heard of until my daughter said, "Oh, Dad, I think I've got this artist that you might like," and she said Billie Eilish, and I'd actually never heard of Billie Eilish up until my daughter had, and then obviously she did the James Bond themes, and we both absolutely loved her James Bond theme as well, which was a fantastic song.
Really? Yeah, no, Billie Eilish is incredible. And then I was just gonna say I am not on TikTok personally, but the music on TikTok tends to be like the popular music of the time now. So it's funny whenever you go on like Spotify, today's top hits, like all of them are TikTok music. So it's quite funny with the trends, but yeah, that's also hype music at the moment.
Excellent. Well, we will leave it there. Kyla, it's been an absolute pleasure to catch up with you again. We absolutely really enjoyed having you at Cybersat last year. You brought something very different, very dynamic to the event, and it's great to hear that you're well, and we wish you all the best for your college career at Stanford, as well as all the things you're still doing with Bits and Bytes as well. It's great to for us to via satellite to talk to the younger generation, find out how they see things, and what we might sort of see in the future. So, from all of us, thank you again for your time this morning. It's been a real pleasure catching up, and look forward to talking to you again soon.
Yeah, of course. And for anyone that wants more information about Bits and Bytes, feel free to go to www.bitsnbytes.us.com or follow me on Twitter at Guru Detective for more information and to follow on the journey.
And on that plug, we will leave it there. We'll thank you again, Kyla, and all the best. Have a good weekend, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful weekend and take care.
Thank you.